Today we're going to be talking about all the BIS items in Tier 7 that you're going to want to get hold of as a Restoration Druid. These will be items that are classed as pre-raid BIS, items that come from Nax, VOA, Obsidian Sanctum, EOE, all on 10 and 25 man, and it will include any crafted items that are half decent as well. One thing I do want to point out is you can actually get 4-piece tier from just your emblems alone. This is Emblems of Heroism and Emblems of Valor. For Emblems of Heroism, you can get the tier chest, which is a 200 eye level tier chest, and you can get the gloves as well, which are also 200 eye level tier gloves. And for Emblems of Valor, you can get the 213, so that's your 25 man legs, and you can get your 213 25 man shoulders. The shoulders are 60 Emblems of Valor, and the legs are 75 Emblems of Valor. Remember, you're only going to get Emblems of Valor from raiding 25 man or doing your daily heroic each day, you know, the quest that you're going to get from outside Violet Hold. With that out of the way, like and subscribe, and let's get into the items. So for the head, first of all, you're going to want Headpiece of Reconciliation, and you're going to notice that we're going for lots and lots of haste as a Resto Druid. That's because we need haste to hit breakpoints. So Headpiece of Reconciliation gives you 60 haste and 113 spell power, and this comes from Sarfarian on 25 man. It's 226 eye level, so it's the highest item level that you can actually achieve. A good second option would be your tier 7.5 head. We want the 2-set bonus, but not overly bothered about the 4-set. If you've got nothing better in those slots and you get the 4-set bonus, then all well and good. But the 2-set reduces the cost of your life bloom by 5%, which is lovely, and your nourish heals an additional 5% for each of your heal over time effects present on the target. Now, ultimately, you're going to want to be using Rejuve and Wild Growth a lot and really basing it on hots, using clear casting procs on life bloom. Nourish you will throw in, don't get me wrong, that's what I mean. The 4-set is slightly useful, but you're not going to be spamming Nourish. The majority of your throughput comes from your hots. Another option would be Hood of Rationality, which comes from EOE 25 man, so that's Malagos 25. The reason it's made it into this position, being 3rd place, is purely because of the amount of spell power it gives you, because it's a 226 eye level. Another option would be your 10 man head, which is just from KT 10 man, and I should have probably mentioned that the 25 man head is actually from KT 25 man. Another option would be from Sarfarian on 10 man as well, which is a 213 with crit and spell power. For the neck, much like every class, you're going to want to kill Sapphiron, loot the item, which only one person in your raid can get at a time. This gives you the key to be able to summon Malagos, kill Malagos, hand that in, and you're going to get this neck, giving you spell power, crit, and MP5, and a socket. Again, it's 226 eye level, so it's the highest eye level neck you're going to be able to get, hence it gives you the most spell power. The 10-man version of it would be an alternative, so instead of killing Sapphiron on 25 and starting the quest, you need to kill her on 10 and start the quest. Chains of Adoration could be another option with haste, spell power, and MP5. This is from Instructor Resuvius in Nax on 25 man. And Volaton Amulet from Obsidian Sanctum, so from Sarfarian on 10 man. It's a 200 eye level with a socket. But this gives crit, spell power, and MP5. For your shoulders, Mantle of Locust is the best, and that's because it's got a lot of haste, a red socket, and lots of spell power. So this is from Anna Brecken on 25 man. This is the first boss in the Arachnid Quarter. A second option would be Mantle of Extensive Mind. This is a BOE. It comes from Instructor Resuvius in Nax 10, but again, lots of haste, spell power, and MP5. You could buy these from the auction house if you're lucky, or go in Nax 10 and get them yourself. Sarfarian 25, these are BOE again, but they are leather this time with crit, haste, and spell power. Shouldn't be too much competition on these, really. Or finally, from Malagos, there's some spell power and crit shoulders, which have got 99 spell power and 49 crit rating. Even though these are 226 eye level and give more spell power than Mantle of the Eternal Sentinel, we are losing out on the haste. And as I say, haste is going to be very important for us in phase 1. For the cloak, like every spellcaster, you're going to want Pennant Cloak, which comes from Sarfarian 25 man, with a socket, good amount of stamina and intellect, spell power, crit, and haste. Absolute beautiful cape. Most DPS casters are going to want this as well, and you're no exception as a healer. Cloak of the Dying from Nax 10 KT is another option, which has got crit, spell power, and MP5. Or Cloak of the Key of Feathers, haste, mana per 5, and spell power. This actually comes just from 25 Emblems of Valor, so it's down as pre-raid BIS, but it's actually a very, very nice cape, and probably what you would use until you get Pennant Cloak. For the chest, you're going to want your tier chest, which you can get from Archivon in Vault of Archivon or Nax 25. Nice amount of haste, nice amount of spell power, and a couple of sockets. And as I say, we're trying to get that 2-set, and we haven't actually got one yet, so tier chest here is a perfect option. You can get your 10-man version, which again comes from VOA 10 or KT in Nax 10. Gives the same stats as the 25-man, just less of them to represent the eye level difference between 200 and 213. Blanketing Robes of Snow are actually very nice with a big amount of spirit, MP5, and huge amounts of spell power to represent the fact that it's a 226 eye level chest. Got no haste, which is a little bit of a downer, And as I say, you're going to ultimately want to get some tier pieces. The Sanctum's Flow Investments, on the other hand, from Sarfarian 25 is a solid option because it does have lots of haste and it has lots of spell power and a couple of sockets. So if you're using a tier piece somewhere else that's not listed in the primary slots on this list, so you could fill in with this chest and you're probably not going to lose a lot. For the bracers, Unsullied Cuffs, which comes from Sarfarian 25 man with a lot of haste, a lot of spell power, and these are 226 eye level again, so absolutely going to want these, but as are most spellcaster, DPS, and healers. Esteem Bindings from Instructor Resuvius in Nax 25 drop a leather version basically of the Unsullied Cuffs. They're not 226 eye level, they are only 213, so you're expecting less stats from them, but being leather, you've got a lot more chance of getting these. There's a pre-raid BIS item, which is Bands of the Great Tree. This comes from 60 Emblems of Valor with mana per 5 and spell power. They are leather. They're not great, they're okay, they're a good item to start with, and you don't actually need to use the Emblems of Valor yourself because you can let someone else spend 60 Emblems of Valor and sell them to you because they're BOE. Cuffs of Winged Leviathan are another pre-raid option. So these actually come from the Oculus Heroic, which is just a 5-man heroic, but for some cloth wrists, 200 eye level, so the same eye level as Nax 10, and they give haste and spell power, it's actually a really, really solid option. So for your gloves, you're going to want your tier 7.5 gloves, which come from Vault of Archivon, but they also come from Sarfarian 25 man. So these have got haste and spell power, and then when we look at the chest with haste and spell power, you can see why these are the two particular pieces of tier that we're actually trying to get. So your optional would be your 10 man, which comes from Sarfarian 10 man or Archivon 10 man with haste and spell power again, or there's a pre-raid option, which is just from the Nexus Heroic with crit and spell power and a red socket. For the head, a heavily contested item, especially as it's cloth, is going to be a Leash of Heedless Magic. You're going to want this for both Boomy and Resto, so if you plan on playing both, getting this quite early will be very nice, but it's 226 eye level, so again, the highest you can get in phase 1, and it's got massive amounts of haste and spell power and spirit, so definitely going to want to get this, but as I say, it's going to be heavily contested. Another option is from Patchwork 25, so it's got no haste on it unfortunately, but 23 mana per 5 and 78 spell power with a socket. It's not too bad, but yeah, you definitely want Leash of Heedless Magic. Or Elegant Temple Garden's Girdle with mana per 5 and spell power. This comes from Emblems of Heroism. It's 40. It wouldn't be something I spent my Emblems of Heroism on unless I was desperate for a belt and still using something terrible. For the legs, Distorted Limbs are going to be your BIS, which come from May Exner, which is the last boss in the Arachnid Quarter, giving you a good amount of haste, a good amount of spell power, and a good amount of spirit, but it's worth noting, again, these are cloth, so expect some competition. Leggings of the Wanton Spellcaster are very good, but the chances of you getting these are very, very slim because they got hit rating on, so of course they shouldn't be prioritized to you, but you can see straight away why you would want them, because 66 haste rating and 132 spell power, and they're 226 eye level, so ultimately, because they're 226 eye level, you're going to get more spell power from them, and they've got more haste than Distorted Limbs. You're going to miss out on the spirit, but you probably won't need it. Skirt of the Old Kingdom's an interesting one from Old Kingdom Heroic, with a lot of spell power being 104 and 45 mana per 5. These are a great pair of legs to try and get while you're doing your pre-raid BIS gearing, but ultimately, you're not going to really want to be using them walking into Ulduar. Another heavily contested item, which is going to be Arcanic Tramplers. The only good thing here is they are BOE, so you can expect to see them on the auction house, but they'll be quite expensive. But again, it's quite nice because these are BIS for both Balance and Resto, so getting them, you can use them for both specs. But yep, from Malagos 25 man with a lot of spirit, haste, and spell power, you're definitely going to want to get hold of these, whether it's in the raid or from buying them from the auction house, or doing what every scumbag does and just hard reserve them. Oh, no, don't. Serene Echoes are very nice from Nax 25, so these are from Hygen. They do lack on the haste, unfortunately, but a good amount of crit, spell power, and MP5. Or from 40 Emblems of Valor, you can get Rainish Chewed Boots with mana per 5 and spell power. Again, these wouldn't be something that I spent my Emblems of Valor on, because there's much more valuable things to be spending those on early in the game. For your rings, you're going to want Ring of Decay and Beauty, which is from Sapphiron 25 in Nax. Absolutely amazing with haste, mana per 5, and spell power. And then Band of Channeled Magic is just from 25 Emblems of Valor. So it's classed as pre-raid, but it's very, very nice because it's got 43 haste, 65 spell power, and you've got some spirit. Now, this will probably be one of the first things you spend your Emblems of Valor on, other than the Idol, which we'll get to in a minute. Some alternatives, though, would be from Obsidian Sanctum. So from Sarfarian 25, you can get haste, mana per 5, and spell power ring called Worm Rest Band. There's not a lot in it between Worm Rest Band and Ring of Decay and Beauty. The only reason Ring of Decay and Beauty is on top is purely because it's got that little bit more haste, 3 extra haste rating. But let's be fair, between the two, there's not really a lot to worry about. And it's the same when you compare it to Band of Channeled Magic. Band of Channeled Magic's got 43 haste rating and 65 spell power, opposed to 32 and 67. We're always going to be going for the one that's got the most haste. But let's be honest, out of these 3 rings, Band of Channeled Magic, Worm Rest Band, and Ring of Decay and Beauty, whatever 2 you can get first, they'll do you fine up until Ulduar. Circle of Life is another option from Sapphiron. This is just 10 man Nax though, though, but again, it's very good because it's got haste, mana per 5, and spell power. Sees Beauty, not quite as good, but it does make it on the list because we need another ring to go on here. But yeah, with crit, spell power, and MP5, ideally, you're not going to want this, but if it's early days and it's going to be a big upgrade over what you're using, then you could pick it up. For the trinkets, ultimately, you're going to want 4-Fort Talisman and Illustration of the Dragon Soul. So 4-Fort Talisman comes from multiple bosses in Nax 25, giving you 111 spell power, and your direct healing spells have a chance to place a heal over time on your target, healing 3, 5, 7, 2 over 12 seconds. And Illustration of the Dragon Soul is just a stacking 20 spell power buff, which stacks 10 times, so you're going to get 200 spell power. Now, the only reason 4-Fort Talisman is on top is purely because of the amount of spell power it gives, being 111, which is more than anything else. So if we was to compare it to the options like Living Ice Crystals, which is 54 MP5 and instantly heal a friendly target for 2710, pretty useless. Egg of Mortal Essence is very nice with 98 spell power, and your direct healing and heal over time give you 505 haste. This is very nice, although we've got our haste caps for a reason, and we're not going to want to get our haste caps from procs. So the extra spell power that you're going to get from 4-Fort Talisman is definitely better. And if Corundaya Brew is available, which is the Brewfest boss, you can get exactly the same as Egg of Mortal Essence, but it's the Ancient Pickled Egg, again with 98 spell power and a chance for that 505 haste. There is one other option, being Embrace of the Spider, which is 98 spell power, but again, it's a haste proc, which, whilst it's decent, I'm not going to say that it's going to be useless, but getting that just static, big spell power from 4-Fort Talisman and Illustration of the Dragon Soul would be my preference, certainly. Torch of the Holy Fire, which again is an item that's BIS for both balance and resto, so if you plan on playing both, you want to get hold of this anyway. Comes from KT25, it's going to have a lot of competition, but MP5 spell power. As a resto druid, you should really get this prioritized to you over spellcasters, even though it's BIS for spellcasters, but most of the time, if it's got MP5 on, most people are going to see it as a healing weapon. Another option would be from Malagos 10, which is Ice Spire Scepter with haste and spell power and some spirit. Absolute great weapon to use until you can get hold of Torch of Holy Fire. Or from Nax 10 from Kel'Thuzad, you got a half decent dagger, but it's got hit rating on, so you shouldn't really be getting it over your spellcasters. But it has got a decent amount of spell power and spirit. Then for your offhand, Matriarch Spawn is the absolute best, which comes from Mayaxna 25, which is the last boss in the Arachnid Quarter, giving you haste and spell power. Another option would be Scepter of Murmuring Spirits from Nax 10. This is from Resuvius, but this is crit and mana per 5 and spell power. Obviously, we're all about that haste, and that's exactly why I would be using the pre-raid BIS, which is 25 Emblems of Heroism with haste and spell power. I would be using that all the way up until I got Matriarch Spawn. You've got quite a few options when it comes to the idols, but reducing the mana cost of your Rejuve by 106. So this is from 25 Emblems of Valor. This is a very, very nice idol, and you're going to be using Rejuve a lot, so the amount of mana you're going to save over the course of a fight is huge, that using this is almost a no-brainer. But Idol of Pure Thoughts to increase the periodic healing of Rejuve can be an option. Even though it's blue, a lot of your healing is going to be coming from Rejuve, so it can be an option if you know you're not going to have any mana worries whatsoever. Or Idol of Lush Moss, which increases the spell power of your periodic portion of Life Bloom by 125, can absolutely be an option as well, especially if you're primarily tank healing. And that's it. Resto Druids, they're the items you want. You can shift a few around, don't get me wrong. The difference between changing one chest for an optional one, using a different head, using a different setup of rings, it's not going to be massive. But these are the best items in each slot. That's according to Sims. And, you know, a bit of common sense just looking through them. That's the setup that I would use. If you found it useful, like and subscribe. Roll the outro. There's lots of ways you can support the channel to keep me here putting out World of Warcraft content and covering all future MMOs. Consider joining the channel as a member. You get access to emotes. Everyone will know you're a member when you comment on future videos because you get a nice icon next to your name. And you get access to members-only videos, which I'll be putting a lot of on the channel throughout the year. Additionally, there's a Patreon link in the description as well. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you on the next one.